Welcome to the House of Maths. Today we're going to be looking at the cosine rule and how to use the cosine rule to find angles and sides in a non-right angle triangle, as I've put up here. Now you're going to need to remember the cosine rule for examinations. You're not given it. I've put it up here and it's something you're just going to have to commit to memory. Now, in previous videos, I've looked at the proof for this. So if you want to see that, I will put a link below and check that one out. Okay, but for today, we're going to be looking at using this rule to find, in the first case, we're going to try and find a side here. So we've got some information on the triangle. We've got an angle and we've got two sides. So if you look at the setup here, you can see that we can use the cosine rule because we've got an angle and we've got the two sides next to it. So that's the kind of setup you need. Obviously, if you're looking for it, if you've not got the angle, we'll see what happens in the next example. Okay, so for this one, we can use the rule exactly as it is up there. All we need to do is just plug the information in. So this over here is cos A. And remember, when we're labelling up the triangles, opposite the angle is side A. So this is the x value here that we're looking for. So x is A in effect. So I'm going to put x squared equals, we want b squared. Now, it doesn't matter which one you call this one b or this one b. If you decide this one's b, then this one's c, and vice versa. Let's start with that one as b. So we've got b squared plus c squared minus 2 times b times c times cos 40. Okay, and then we can go for our calculator and plug some of these in. You might want to, if your mental maths is great, you can just work out a little bit of this to start with. So we can see that obviously that's 100, that's 225 minus 2 times 15 is 30 times 10 is 300 cos 40. We can add those two together here, can't we, to get 325 minus 300 cos 40. And as we want x, remember that we're going to need to square root our answer. So I grab the calculator. Okay, here's the calculator. So we're just going to plug in our numbers here. So we got 325 minus 300 cos 40. Okay, and then we just want to square root that when we've got that in there. And that gives us 9.76. And that's our answer for that one. So that's how we go about finding a side. Now let's have a look what happens if we're after an angle. Okay, so we want to find this angle up here, theta, and we've got these sides. We've got to use the same formula, but notice this formula is set up so that we get A as the answer. Now, what we're going to have to do here, we're going to have to take our formula and we're going to have to rearrange it so that we get cos as the subject of the formula. So if I write this one down underneath, a squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cos a. Okay, so how I would go about doing this, if we look at this bit at the end here, we've got minus 2bc cos a. If we add that to both sides, it's going to cancel out on this side and move it over to the other side. So we're going to get a squared plus 2bc cos a equals b squared plus c squared. Now I'm going to subtract a squared from both sides. So that's going to remove that a squared from here. So we're going to be left with 2bc cos a equals b squared plus c squared minus a squared. Now all we need to do to isolate cos a is we're going to divide both sides by 2bc. Okay, and hopefully you can see they're just going to cancel out over here. So I'll just remove that. And we've got cos as the subject of this formula. So once we've done that, that's the hard bit really. We can just put in the information we've got. So if I do that over here, we're going to get, in this case, cos theta is what we're after. And we just need to make sure that we get the A's, B's and C's correct. So opposite the theta, this one's going to be A. Now, as I've said before, doesn't matter which way around you call these, B or C or vice versa, but you need to get this bit right. That's the cosine, so that's cosine A, so opposite it is side A. So bearing that in mind, let's put in our information. So I'm going to call this one B, so that's 10 squared plus 12 squared minus 16 squared divided by 2 times 10 times 12. Okay, so what have we got here? 10 squared is 100, 12 squared is 144, minus 16 squared. I'm going to use the calculator for that in case I get that one wrong. 16 squared, yeah, 256. And that's all over 2 times 12 is 24 times 10 is 240. So let's just work that one out. So we've got 100 plus 144, what's that? Minus 256 equals that, divided by 240. Okay, so we get an answer, and then with the answer, all we're going to do is to convert that into a cosine. We're going to go second function cos, and we're going to put the answer in there, and that gives us 92.9 degrees. Okay, so theta is 92.9 degrees. Okay, so that's how you use the formula to get an angle. So it's important that you commit this to memory. Okay, and you do need to make sure you can rearrange it so that you get cos A as the subject, because you're going to need that to solve angle problems. Okay, now questions can get a little bit harder than this as well, so I'll just do one that's a little bit harder. I'll keep that up there, but let's have a look at this. Okay. So we've got this shape and we have got some labels on it. That's A, that's B, C and D. Okay, we've got this angle up here which is 35 degrees. We're going to have that length there which is 15, and we're going to have that angle there. We've got that angle there, 110, that one's 20, and this side here. So what we're going to be asked to do in this question is find side AD. That's what we've got to do. So that's this side here. So I'm going to put an X. We're trying to find this length. Now, if you look at the information we've got, not got enough information to do that in the triangle ACD. We've got this angle over here and we've got this side here. But hopefully you can see that if we can get this side here, we can then use the cosine rule. So we've got to find that side there. Now, we're going to have to use this triangle here in order to do that. And hopefully you can see that we're going to use, first of all, it's not a right angle triangle, so we can't use SOHCAHTOA. Looking at the information we've got there, we're not going to be able to use the cosine rule. So the only other thing left we could try is the sine rule. And if you look, we've got an angle here and we've got a side opposite. So we've got that kind of set up there. We've got an angle here and we're actually after the side opposite. So we can use the sine rule here. And we're trying to find a side here, aren't we? So we want to, when we use the sine rule, first we've got to remember the sine rule. So let's put that down. A sine A equals B sine B. It's a little easier to remember than the cosine rule. So remember, we can use this way, or you can use it the other way around. Sine A over A equals sine B over B. Both acceptable. Now if we're looking for a side, I would use this version of it. So the bit that you're looking for, the side, keep those on top. If you were looking for an angle, I'd use that one where the angle is going to be on top. So here we go. Let's put in the information we've got. Okay, let's say A is 9. So sine A is going to be sine 20. And that's going to equal, let's call this side Y, the one we're looking for. And that's going to be over sine 110. So to make Y the subject of this, we just need to multiply through by sine 110. So Y is going to equal 9 times sine 110 over sine 20. And then we can grab our calculator and work out what that is. So let's do that. So we've got 9 times sine 110, and we're going to divide that by sine 20. That's going to give us 24.73. Okay, so Y equals 24.73. So I can put that in now. So that's great. We've got this length now, that angle and that side. We can now use the cosine rule to find X. So let's do that. Let's just check. So this is side A, opposite. So that's cosine. So that's this bit here. So we want X. And that's going to equal 15 squared plus this squared minus 2 times 15 times 24.73 times cos 35. Okay, so I'm going to put this in the calculator and see what we get. So we've got 15 squared plus 24.73 squared. That's going to give us 836.57. And then let's do the other bit. So that's 2 times 15 times 24.73 times cos 35. And that gives us 607.73. Okay, if I take those from each other, we get 228 points, what does that say, 228.9. Okay, so x squared equals 228.9. So we've got to remember to square root this. So x equals the square root. Okay, so let's just do that. And that gives us 15.1. Okay, so that's a slightly harder question. Remember, when you're working these bits out, try to keep as many decimal places in with the interim calculations and only round up when you get right to the end. Okay, so these are typical sort of GCSE questions. The last one is a bit harder. The first two probably around about the C, B area, and this one certainly getting up to the A, or if you're in England, you're talking about a 7 for this one. The other two, 5, 6. Okay, if you enjoyed that, please remember to hit the like button, and more content coming soon.